we're moving out on another episode of Military Collectors. Our destination this week, Horseheads, New York, to talk the M151 body panel restoration. This and a whole lot more on this week's Military Collectors.
31, ready to check. Roger that.
On Military Collectors this week, we're going to be talking the restoration of the M151 Jeep, the mainstay of the Vietnam War well up into the late 90s and into the 2000s in the U.S. military. Now, let's hear a little bit of history about this workhorse from the Vietnam era.
The M151 vehicle was the successor to the Korean War M38. The M151, commonly referred to as a Jeep or quarter ton, was produced from 1959 until 1982 and saw extensive service during the Vietnam War. The M151 design made it more roomier than previous Jeep designs and incorporated an independent suspension with coil springs for smoother handling and mobility. In 1951, the Ford Motor Company was awarded the contract to design a quarter-ton 4x4 truck to replace the M38 model Jeeps. First put into service in Vietnam, the M151 played an active role in American military operations well into the 1980s, when it was phased out in favor of the Humvee. We'll have more on the M151 later during today's Military Collectors, so stay tuned.
The restoration of the M151 has really got to be a collector's question. Do I put the money in it, or do I let it go on back to the rust bucket and go on to the salvage yard? Well, I had that same question I had to answer. This was my first vehicle. As you can see, it didn't always look like this. This vehicle now looks so much better than it did a year ago when I first started on this path, this journey of restoration. As a new collector, I really didn't realize exactly what it took. But these vehicles, unlike the World War II era and the Korean War vintage vehicles, you could take the frame and the body, separate them, restore them, put them back together, and you're good to go. Not with the M151. It's unibody. And a little bit of the history about that thing we're going to show you as we go through the show. But the key question I had was, I going to spend the money, and could I find the right stuff to fix this body that was rusted out? Again, many times during the course of the Vietnam War, rust was always on these vehicles, okay? So what they did to replace the panels and the frame pieces underneath, they just rolled them up on their sides, propped them up, took all the fluids out of the engines, and then started cutting the rust panels out and then replacing them, much like what I had to do with this one. But I found a company in order to do that up in Horseheads, New York, and without them, this thing probably would not be back on the road today. On Military Collectors this week, we've traveled all the way to Horseheads, New York, Cameron Manufacturing. It is the home and parent company of M151 body panels. Our subject this week is, well, I'll tell you what, for all the hearts and minds out there, it's got to be M151 restoration, because that is probably one of the most unique restorations. Now, I know folks will differ with me, but the Director of Operations here at Cameron Manufacturing is Guy Loomis, and I'll tell you what, he is not only a guy that can make things happen with a Jeep and build these parts, but he also is a collector as well. Guy, tell you what, welcome to Military Collectors this week. You know, I tell you, let's get right into this, because, you know, having to be an owner of a Jeep, an M151, it's a basket case, been there, done that. We'll talk a little bit about mine here in a little bit, but let's talk about yours, because again, what you guys do here at Cameron and M151 body panels, you did that out of the love and trying to, and I guess all of your background to try and build in these replacement body panels, which is key.
Yeah, so I purchased an M151. It's a 1968 A1 in 2012. I quickly realized that if I wanted to restore it with body panels, that I would have to make them, or Cameron would have to make them, because they are not available at this time. Went through the process of doing reverse engineering. These are actual panels off of my Jeep, which was an X-Cut, and you can see what we've come up with today.
Well, here's the tail right here, folks. You can see how he did this, okay? And again, you know, Guy will tell you, military collectors of anything, or any collector for that matter, are very finicky. They always want to get it back to concours, okay? We'll tell you what concours means, but that means just like it came out of the factory. And you know, that's what's so unique here at Cameron. You've done that, and you have,
yes,
actually, you know. So tell me about your background just a little bit, because I think it's important as a collector, and not only that, but as a manufacturer of this stuff, just exactly how important that is to the folks out there who are going to buy these things.
Yeah, so I started my career as a welder. In about 1994, I started working for a local manufacturer. I had some experience in reverse engineering and designing parts, and that has enabled me to be able to do reverse engineering on panels like this. When we build them, we're holding tolerances as close as possible to the originals, down to thousandths of an inch if we can.
Well, Guy, listen, invariably the tailpiece is always one of the first things that's got to be replaced. I mean, very seldom do you find one that's not rusted out. This is an A1?
Yes.
And this come off your Jeep?
Yes. Yep, I removed this from mine, and this was probably one of the most difficult panels to remove.
Oh, wow.
I originally wanted to take it off in one piece, and out of frustration, I grabbed the hacksaw.
Okay, now, from this to now this, tell folks what that process and what you have to do to get there.
Yeah, so the first part of the process is to do the reverse engineering, which means every bend, every bead, every hole is measured as accurately as possible. That is then converted to a AutoCAD drawing, drawn up. We run it through our program department, and then it is programmed for our MUTT C1 laser, which has the ability to do all of the bead work. This is what is called a progressive rib tool. There's actually two setups here because we do the backside for the tail light buckets.
Right.
The tool is obviously capable of doing diameters. When this forms, it probably moves the sheet around 15 to 20 thousandths of an inch as it's doing the dimple work. And then the second operation would be doing the straight beads. And the nice thing about the C1 is it has auto-indexing tooling stations, which means it can change the angle of the punch to give you the different beads or the orientation of them.
Well, Guy, we've got a few of the more unique pieces here merely because of all the bends, the breaks, the dents, the dimples, and all those kind of things. I'm just going to put it in simple old soldier terms. But for you engineers, this is no small feat here because, again, the accuracy, okay? Because guys out there who are repairing these things in these vehicles, they want exactness. And that's what you've got here.
Yes.
That's what's special about Cameron manufacturing and M151 body panels. So let's move around here. Let's talk about this too. Again, the toolbox lid always invariably, it just always bankrupt, okay? Bad shape. So you've done that and you've done it well.
Yeah, so, and if you had a Jeep with a ROP system, you would have the corner would be cut out.
Right.
And the guys that remove the ROPs then have a damaged toolbox cover.
Yeah, and for folks out there that know what ropes or ROPs is rollover protection. That was a cage that they put inside the Jeep a little bit later, and we'll show you all a picture of that. But then let's walk around now. Difficult? That, and you know, folks, I have 3 basket case Jeeps that I have gotten these panels for. And because of you and your engineering and Cameron's, well, them putting forth this, I was able to save 3 of these things from the salvage yard. And one of them is the fenders. They're invariably always bent up, rusted, broke, gone, just like this, okay? This is no small feat either.
No. On the fenders, so the common thing you see is from the stiffener underneath.
Yep.
They always rust out here. In this case, mine being an X-cut, obvious damage. The reproduction, again, is close to the original. We have the stiffener. In the A1's case, the turn signal boss or riser. The corner piece is a welded in piece. This is all done with fixtures.
And tell me about this process. So we go from what is your Jeep top, then we get to the final product.
Yeah, so the reverse engineering was done on this part. The AutoCAD drawing developed, laser program created. This is the part directly off of the laser after the ribs are formed. laser work is done, and then off of the press brake next, and then welded.
To include
with
the footman loops too.
Yep,
yeah.
with the footman loops.
Which is key. Now, one key question here, the thickness of the material as compared to the original.
Matches the original.
Matches the
18
original.
gauge in this case.
Wow.
Yep.
Wow. One final thing that I want to ask you here is the enormity of all the parts and body parts and panels that you now have in stock. I know that you're continuing to develop all of them.
Correct.
For all three, the M151, the A1, and the A2.
Yes.
So right now, currently, how many different pieces roughly do you have in stock that you're making for these Jeeps?
We probably have over 20 part numbers at this time.
Wow, that is phenomenal.
Yep. Yeah, we focused on the A1 because I have an A1. Some of these parts are universal, and I will be eventually getting into the A2.
That is awesome.
Yep.
Side body panels and the whole bit.
Yes.
That's,
Yep.
you know, and again, without you, and without your collector ability, okay, as a Jeep owner, we wouldn't be here. And so again, it's saved my vehicles. It's going to save a ton more for everybody else out there. I appreciate it.
Glad
Thank
we
you
can
so
help.
much. Yeah, man. Well, you've heard some history about the M151 on today's show, but I want to get back into the A2 restoration here of mine. It's far from over. Okay, I've really got a lot more to do. Although it's up on the road, it runs. I've still got some body panels to replace, like some fender tops. And again, these fender tops are as close to the original stamps as you, the thickness of the metal, the footman loops, all the ridges, all of this stuff that's produced by Cameron Manufacturing and M151 body panels. I'm telling you, this is just like it was when it was produced at the factory by Ford, by Kaiser, by AM General. All those years of producing these replacement parts, they have mastered that process. But some more of the continuation of the M151 A2 restoration that I have here, I just have to tell you that this has to be a love. It has to be a decision that somebody has to make, because again, you are putting a lot of money in a vehicle that may or may not be valued at what you have in it. Many times you can find these, you can save them, you can get them cost at a good price, but again, from repair parts to all the labor that goes into fixing them, again, if you don't do it all yourself and you got to send it out and you got to pay for it, that's another matter. And as a collector, like me or you, that is something that you've got to consider. So with that, all of these body panels, they make these vehicles serviceable again. And that is a key thing that M151 body panels and Cameron Manufacturing in Horsehead, New York, that's what they do. Well, folks, we're back here at Cameron Manufacturing, M151 body panels in Horseheads, New York. And Guy Loomis is going to talk to us about how we're going to save, and I say we, I too, we're going to save money as collectors when we're restoring our M151, because you guys have went to all the trouble, the time, and the effort here, because that's what you do, to make the tools and the dies and all the presses and all that stuff to make these things exact. Tell me about these guys.
Yeah, so we have made tooling through our machine shop to make sure we can hold the exact tolerances or as close as possible.
Right.
And we also, when we run these parts, we run them in quantities, which reduces our setup time, which is a cost savings to our customers. So,
well, with having over 20 part numbers now, and that's probably going to grow to what? 35, 40, something like that
I would
eventually.
guess.
So, and again, folks, it's important because, again, for you collectors out there, you're going to have the whole family at one point here, the M151, the A1, and the A2, and have all of those things. And so, again, you're going to be able to save not only money, but you're going to be able to save some parts of history. Let's talk about this fender, because this is very unique to the A1.
Yep, so the turn signal mount, we machined tooling so that when we run these parts, we run these in a lot size of about 80 pieces. We set up our stamping die, and this starts out as a flat panel. We put it in the die, and in a matter of seconds, it produces the mount.
Wow.
And they are the same every time, and then that is spot welded after the fact. The corner pieces, which are also formed in a custom die when they're welded up, we use a aluminum heat sink block that not only controls the warpage, but again holds the tolerance and the factory specs as close to the original as possible.
Can I call you Professor Loomis?
If you'd like.
I mean, this is phenomenal because again, to produce the exact reproduction part down to that, you know, that minute detail. Let's talk about footman loops. A lot of you folk out there that if you've restored and you know what these things are all over the side to tie down your straps, it doesn't matter what year Jeep you have, it's a footman loop, okay? Some of the folks out there on the internet are selling these things for upward of 20 bucks a piece. You guys have broke that code and saving collectors money.
Our featured email this week comes from Michael David from Boston, Massachusetts. Just wanted to share with you my 1970 M151A2 with only 93 original miles and thought you could help me in estimating the value. This is an early run of the first A2 MUTTs from the Dearborn, Michigan Ford factory. Amazingly preserved and unmolested. Mostly used for display and garaged its entire existence. What do you think the value might be? Well, Michael, the value range for your 1970 MUTT would be from $25,000 to $35,000. If you'd like to have your military restoration project or collectible featured on the show, just send an email with your photos to photos@militarycollectorstv.com.
Well, with the help of Cameron Manufacturing and M151 body panels, I was able to save this vehicle. Although expensive, that's okay. I'm not saying that the panels are expensive. Actually, that was probably the cheapest part of the restoration. But the question has to remain, do I or do I not want to put the money in it to save these things for history and preserve them for the future? Well, I made that decision and I did. But Cameron Manufacturing is a whole lot more than just body panels. The great thing about what Cameron does, you have another piece, may not be able to find it, you may need something fabricated. These guys can make it happen. Guy Loomis, well, he had a love and a passion for an M151 Jeep that he bought, and that's what then caused all the production. He did all of the designing. Everything was done at Cameron, just like you saw on today's show. I will tell you, if you have some specific part, well, let's just take a look and see what else Cameron can do.
I'm Brian Bush. I'm the Business Development Manager at Cameron Manufacturing and Design. I've been with the company approximately 15 years. We started the business in 1983. Business was started by Frank Laviola Sr. and started with about 10 employees. It has evolved into a 200 to 220 person company. We're a custom metal manufacturing company. One thing that stands out about Cameron is we're a family-oriented business. We have a lot of father-son combinations. It's a small company, so typically at Cameron everybody knows each other's names. We specialize in all things metal. And one thing that makes us different from our competitors is we are a custom shop. So we have no products, we have nothing on the shelf. We specialize in prototypes, first offs, things that you probably only see one time. We manufacture all types of products, anything from a simple bracket, perhaps just a flat sheet of metal, and then we evolve into something like what you see behind me, which is an entire turnkey skid that involves piping. We have an ASME code stamp, so we have code welders. We have highly specialized skill sets in our employees that allow us to make anything from a simple bracket to something like what you see behind me. We have a 40-person engineering staff at Cameron. That staff uses 3D CAD packages to design and take concepts from conceptual stages to final product. We have the latest equipment at Cameron for then fabricating the things that are designed by our engineering group. We have the latest lasers, we have a water jet, we have CMMs, we have a full service machine shop. With our 200-person company, we stay up to date on the latest technology so that we are at the cutting edge of fabrication shops. If you'd like more information about Cameron Manufacturing and Design, please feel free to visit our website, www.camfab.com, It's camfab.com.
Roger that.
Back here at the Redford Motor Pool, well, I've got to continue the restoration of this M151A2, but I couldn't have done it without all the great folks at Cameron Manufacturing. I hope you enjoyed seeing what they can do for you, the collector, and if you have an M151 Jeep out there that you need some body panel parts replaced, and I will tell you that in the future they're going to even develop more stuff out there that you'll have available at your fingertips if you want to save one of these Hummers. I will tell you, Cameron Manufacturing, M151 body panels, that's the place to go check. I've got a lot more to do here at the Motor Pool today. This thing is a long way to go. It's still a passion, but that's what we do as military collectors. We'll see you next time.